Good afternoon, class. Ethan Makalalad here, and we will now talk about Hebrew literature. Before we start, let us go to our objectives. So, our goals are to know what Hebrew literature is, become familiar with the history of Hebrew literature, and analyze Hebrew literature. Before we begin, let us first have a little game. So the activity is to unjumble the following words related to Hebrew literature. The answers are here. Number 1, Old Testament. Number 2, New Testament. Number 3, Bible. Number 4, Hebrew. And number 5, Antiquity. With those words in mind, let us now talk about Hebrew literature. So, what is Hebrew literature? Hebrew literature has been produced uninterruptedly from the early 12th century BCE, and excavated tablets may indicate a literature of bigger antiquity. The word antiquity means ancient past. From 1200 BCE to 200 Common Era, the spoken language is Hebrew. There are two different types, Biblical Hebrew and Mishnaic Hebrew. Let us now discuss Hebrew literature in the ancient and modern time. So, in the ancient times, more than 20 of the 39 books of the Old Testament are already preserved. The Old Testament starts with Genesis and ends with Malachi. Poetry probably preceded prose. Biblical poetry was based on the principle of parallelism. Two halves of a verse with the same idea by repeating it in different words or by stressing different aspects. Some examples are found in the book of Psalms. These focuses on songs, but they flatter him with their mouths, they lie to him with their tongues. Psalms chapter 78 verse 36. He turned their rivers to blood so that they could not drink of their streams. Psalms chapter 78, verse 44. To this form was added a simple rhythm, consisting mainly in having each half of a line divided into an equal number of stressed words. There were also folk songs, to which belonged perhaps large parts of the Song of Solomon, chants and psalms. The use of various forms of poetry in the work of the prophets appears to be a later development. The earlier prose texts were still very close to poetry, both in structure and in language. The first real prose may have been some of the laws recorded in the Pentateuch. So, what is the Pentateuch? Pentateuch is Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. A high standard of prose rhetoric was achieved. Some of the conversations in the historical books were attempts to reproduce in writing the style of ordinary speech. In contrast to the works of the Bible and the Second Temples were the collections of writings concerned with Jewish, civil, and religious law, whereas the former were lengthy writings bearing the imprints of or editors. Rabbinic literature in the early times consisted entirely of collections of individual statements loosely strung together. The individual paragraphs exhibit the influence of Hellenistic rhetoric. We now have the formative influences. So, the first formative influences of modern Hebrew literature in the 20th century, actually belong to the late 19th century. The middle classes of Eastern European Jewry, Jewry, that read Hebrew books turned to Jewish nationalism and Zionist activity, coupled with the movement for speaking Hebrew, widened the circle of Hebrew readers. Hebrew daily papers began to appear in 1886. Writers borrowed extensively from medieval translators and European languages, and the Hebrew language assumed a new character. A key figure in the transition to modern writing was Shalom Jacob Abramovich, who wrote under the pseudonym of Mendel Mocker Sepharim. After his first novel, he became convinced that Biblical Hebrew was unsuitable for modern subjects and turned to Yiddish. It was used, the Yiddish language was used in Central and Modern Europe. From 1886 onward, he returned to writing mainly in Hebrew, and by using Hebrew and Aramaic phrases from the Talmud, it's a book. He was able to capture the homeliness he prized in Yiddish. His stories talked about life as it really was, and his style and support of traditional values attracted a wide leadership. A group of writers adopted Grandfather Mendel as their model. One of these, Asher Ginsberg, wrote from 1889 onward articles involving a secular philosophy of Jewish nationalism. His periodical Hashiloah attained editorial standards previously unknown in Hebrew. He devoted his last years to the editing of his correspondence, and his poetry dealt with love, beauty, and the three places we have lived: Crimea, Germany, and Palestine. Let us now talk about contemporary Hebrew literature. It is a dynamic field and is composed of multiculturalism, apoliticism, and multilingualism. Multiculturalism reflects Israel's cultural, political, and psychological tensions. Hebrew writers use the Hebrew language in apolitical terms, and contemporary Hebrew literature can be written in many languages, even in English. So, for your quiz, here is a list of questions regarding Hebrew literature. Read and analyze the statements carefully. Write true if the statement is true or false if the statement is false, and answers only on a one-fourth sheet of paper. Let us now check. Number one is true, number two is true, number three false, four true, five true, six true, seven false, eight true. Now, your assignment is to write an essay of 200 words regarding Hebrew literature in the contemporary era with introductory, body, and closing paragraphs. Observe proper margin. Thank you for your participation